Hey, Todd Hampson here, and we've been going over my books and the order that I wrote them, kind of an overview of each. There's a first video on the Nonprofit's Guide to the End Times, but today we're talking about the Nonprofit's Guide to the Book of Revelation. And I wrote that book as a follow up to the first book because it expands on it, and of course, everybody wonders about the Book of Revelation. I wanted to put handles on the tough topic, handles on the book that a lot of people avoid. The way the book is structured, it's literally a chronological walkthrough from chapter 1 through chapter 22 with insight on each section and that kind of thing. So I'm going to share a little bit today about some verses in the book of Revelation and some features in the book of Revelation that if you haven't studied it or it's been intimidating to you, this may help disarm it a little bit. Real quick, in the book, in each chapter, there's a chart on the very first page that shows all the chapters, and there's an arrow showing exactly where you are in the book. A lot of people don't realize the book of Revelation is chronological. Now, there are a few chapters, we call them parenthetical chapters, that center around the midpoint of the tribulation period that kind of give you an expanded view and are not, doesn't show everything chronologically. It gives you a broader view of some bigger things that culminate at the middle. But aside from those interstitial or middle chapters that kind of give a more broad view, generally speaking, the entire book of Revelation is written chronologically. And here's a couple verses that you may not have heard of if you haven't studied the book before. But chapter 1, verse 3 said, "Blessed is the one who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy and keep the things that are written in it, for the time is near." In other words, the book of Revelation is the only book in the Bible that has an explicit promise that if you read it and if you listen to it and apply it, your life will be blessed. Now, that principle is obviously, you can take that from other verses and that kind of thing, but here it's explicitly stated that the final book of the Bible, those who read it and hear it will be blessed. Yet, it's the book that most people avoid. When was the last time you heard a sermon series or a single sermon on the book of Revelation? In most churches, yet we have this promise in the very first chapter that those who will read it and those who hear it will be blessed. Another amazing one that we read about is also in chapter 1. Chapter 1:19 actually gives the outline for the entire book of Revelation. And it says, "Therefore write these things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after these things." So the things you have seen, the things which are, and the things that are happening in the future. Chapter 1 is the things you have seen. So explain what this vision that you just saw. John saw the glorified Christ. So explain that. Then the chapters 2 and 3 are the things that are now. Chapters 2 and 3 were 7 churches written, really given by Jesus, almost like 7 hidden epistles within the Bible, within the book of Revelation. 7 letters from Jesus to 7 literal churches in Asia Minor or modern day Turkey. So that's what those are the things that are. This is what's going on right now. And then finally, the things which are yet to come. And that's chapters 4 through 22, all future stuff. So the outline of the book of Revelation is given to us right there in the first chapter. The book itself, generally speaking, for the most part, is chronological in nature. So those two things right there should put some handles on the book, make it a little easier to access, little less intimidating to dive into. And also another thing I want to mention, and I highlight this immensely in the book, is that the book is, we can take it at face value. In other words, we can interpret it literally. The book of Revelation is full of symbols. In the 404 verses of Revelation, there's roughly 800 allusions to the Old Testament. So there are direct allusions to the Old Testament, which means you got to roll up your sleeves and study the Old Testament. But they're not to be allegorized. In other words, we don't pour our own meaning in them. We get the meaning from Scripture. When it comes to the symbols that are found in the book of Revelation, half of the symbols, the meaning of the symbol is given to you right in the context. If you're reading it, usually later in that same verse, or same chapter, it'll give you the meaning for what those are. For example, he talks about these lampstands in chapter 1, and then we're told the lampstands are the 7 churches. So God's not playing hide and seek with us. He wants us to know these things, and he speaks clearly, but he expects us to know the Old Testament, and he wants us to roll up our sleeves and do the work to make sure we understand what the symbols mean. Now, there's a lot of other language in Revelation that is not symbolic. It is literal. Yet a lot of people try to apply it as symbolic. But if it's not given, if it's not clearly a symbol, if it can be taken at face value and interpreted literally, that's exactly what we should do. That's what we do with the rest of the Bible. We shouldn't switch Bible study methods when we get to the book of Revelation. Now, another thing I want to highlight, and I go over this in the book in detail as well, is that 18 times in Revelation 1 to 3, chapters 1 to 3, the word church is used. And then we don't see it again until chapter 22 when Jesus is kind of reaffirming, hey, this is the whole message for the churches. But from chapter 4 to all the way to 19, we don't see the church. And in 19, the word church isn't used, but the symbolism, again, the symbols are given to meaning, is right there. Chapter 19:7, I'll just read this verse. It says, actually, I'm going to read 7 and 8. Let's rejoice and be glad and give glory to him because the marriage of the Lamb has come and his bride has prepared herself. Now, other places in Scripture, all through the New Testament, the church is called the bride of Christ. Very clear, unambiguous. We can take that at face value. And it was given her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. So fine linen, the white clothing is connected to the church, the bride of Christ. And then later in that same chapter, in 19, and this is with the return of Christ at the end of the tribulation period, it says, and the armies which are in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, same exact terminology, were following him on white horses. So all of that to say, chapters 1 to 3, 18 times the church is mentioned. Beginning in 4:1, when John is called up to heaven, to the throne room of heaven, the church is not seen again. Why? Because the church is not there. The church is raptured prior to the tribulation period. It's very clear in Scripture by omission and commission, so to speak. We have other overt texts that tells us that. Revelation 3:10 says we are to be taken out of the world before the hour of trial is to come upon the whole world. So a lot of evidence for that. But anyway, 18 times in 1 through 3, the word church is used, then never again until chapter 22. But we see the symbolism of the church with the clothes that are clearly connected to the bride of Christ as we return with Christ at the end of the tribulation period. So chapters 1, the things you have seen. Chapters 2 through 3, the things which are. Chapters 4 through 19, well, actually 4 and 5 are the throne room. 6 through 19 are the tribulation period. Chapter 20 is the millennial kingdom. Chapter 21 and 22 is the new heavens, the new earth, and the new Jerusalem. Again, it's all chronological. It all plays out. And most importantly, it all ties up all the loose ends of everything in Scripture. If you read chapter 1 and 2 of Genesis and then the final 2 chapters of Revelation, you can see the original creation, before the fall, and then how God restores everything on steroids way better than he even originally had it. So we have some amazing things to look forward to, but that's the purpose of the book of the Non-Prophet's Guide to Revelation, to give people an easy to understand kind of manual. I don't go to a deep dive on every single verse in the book of Revelation, but I give you an overview of the entire book, how to interpret it, how to understand it, put handles on it. And a lot of people have been blessed by it. And I basically wanted to write a book that I could understand and that put handles on it for myself and had a lot of visual content and visual components that help people who are visual learners like myself. And apparently it's striking a chord because a lot of people have been engaging with the book of Revelation in a relevant way because of that book. So check it out. You can get it anywhere online. Go to my website, toddhampson.com. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, again, just want to reiterate, I have the book, The Non-Prophet's Guide to Heaven, coming out in October. If you pre-order that now, it helps put it in more prominent places online to where more people bump into it, more people hear about the gospel. Now, more than ever before in my lifetime, the world is asking the big questions, and eternity is in the heart of man. We all know there's an afterlife. This book will be approachable to people, believers and non-believers alike, and will help them understand that God in his word tells us a whole lot about heaven, and most importantly, how to get there through the sacrifice of Christ and our acceptance of that amazing gift that we call the gospel. So anyway, talk to you next time. Take care, and please like, share, and subscribe.